Lastly, let's go over some of the. This will just be the top 3 rule changes and topics that are going to be discussed at the NFL league meeting that have been announced, anyways. So first of all, they're going to be discussing a rule change to permit the kicking team to declare an onside kick at any point during the game. There's some other kicking rules that they're going to be discussing. Part of it, of course, is just that in the last few years, since the NFL did away with the traditional kickoff, they've changed some of the other rules as far as where you get the ball if it's kicked out of bounds, where you get the ball if it's kicked out of the back of the end zone, where you get the ball if it's not, if it doesn't go within the landing zone that they have now. It's kind of confusing sometimes what all the different yard markers are supposed to be, but regardless, part of the modern kicking rules in the NFL is, at least in 2025, and since they introduced the new kickoff rule, it was for onside kicks, they now made it so that you had to declare when you were going to make an onside kick, and you were only limited to doing it if you were behind and it was, late in the game. Like, it was very limited, including in 2025. Teams were very limited as to when they could do an onside kick. Now, this proposed rule change, you would still have to declare an onside kick, so it still wouldn't be a surprise like it used to be able to be, but you can now. The proposal, anyways, that's going to be discussed would be to open that up so that teams can do that earlier on in the game, which I think that's fair. Especially being that you're already going to have to still announce it. I think that should be allowed any time in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if that passed. I don't see that many people objecting to that one. The second one that's going to be discussed is rule to allow NFL league personnel to consult with on-field officials when considering disqualification for both flagrant football acts or non-football acts without being called on the field. So I think part of what triggered this has to do with the altercation that happened during it was before the Steelers-Lions game in Detroit. There was the incident of DK Metcalf punching a fan. I don't remember all the ins and outs of what ended up getting decided of who was right or wrong and all that, but regardless, there was a Lions fan that was shouting who knows what at DK Metcalf before the game. He let it get to him, went up, had a thing. That fan ended up suing the league, the Lions. I think he still, sued the Steelers, sued DK Metcalf, all that kind of stuff. And so part of that is this rule would just be, opening up the ability for the league to disqualify a player for something that they did, even if it was off the field, without throwing a flag during the game. Similar to how they're expanding replay officials' ability to call for replays or change calls, that kind of thing. Similar to how the NFL has been expanding that. They've also had, like, with concussions, having the third party, the neutral third party person that's responsible for radioing down and saying, hey, this player took a hit, take him out, we need to take a look at him. Similar to that kind of stuff, this proposal would just be expanding a little bit more for somebody from New York in the league office to be able to radio in to call in to the officials in the stadium and say, hey, we need to take care of this, we need to do that. So that's another proposed one. I'd expect that one to go through. The third rule change that I want to bring up that is going to be discussed this upcoming week. This one was proposed by the Cleveland Browns, and I think it's actually a pretty interesting one. They want to change the rule to allow draft pick selection to be traded up to 5 years in the future. So if you didn't know, currently, again, as I've talked about trades so far in this video, the current NFL rules limit teams to trading picks within the upcoming 3 years. So right now, teams could trade 2026, 2027, and 2028 draft picks. You can't trade draft picks from any further out than that. But the idea behind this proposed change would just open it up to now you can trade draft picks farther in advance. If you really wanted to, that just opens it up for teams to, if teams want to go all in right now, have sort of the F them picks mentality that teams like the Rams have a lot of the times, where they trade away their first round pick all the time. Teams could more so do that even more with this rule now, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It also obviously would allow the opposite. If a team, if a franchise really wanted to, invest in the future and say, hey, we're really bad right now, we'll take 1 or 2 years of being bad and we'll just trade everything we got to draft picks for 3 years, 4 years from now, the teams will be able to do a little bit more of that. Obviously, the two examples I just gave, more of the extreme sides of that. But yeah, you could certainly see, especially on the other end of trying to win right now, this is one of the things that I think could be maybe a downside, especially for coaches and general managers and stuff who, can get fired within a year or two if things don't work out for them, is you could certainly see a desperate GM and head coach that know that they're, they need to win now or they're going to be fired. You could totally see a general manager, trying to, I might not be here 4 or 5 years from now. All right, I'll trade away all those picks and let's go get this guy. Now, obviously, every GM is going to fill the same thing there. So, trading a draft pick for this year, versus, trading a first rounder for 2026 right now versus a first rounder for 2027. Obviously, the 26 first round pick has more value right now in a trade. So, trading a first rounder for 5 years from now, it's going to have less value than trading a first round pick that's this year or next year. But I do think this proposition is interesting. Again, I think on some extreme ends, it could open up to some issues. But honestly, I don't think that those issues would really come to be. This rule change would just open things up for trades more, which I think would be cool. Trades are fun. Again, sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes they work for one side, and a lot of times trades work for both sides. Both teams end up coming out better for that trade. So I think that would be interesting, and regardless of whether or not they work out, especially big trades, blockbuster trades, they're always pretty entertaining. Give us stuff to talk about, especially in the off season, but even early into the regular season before the trade deadline. Big trades obviously make big headlines and can be a lot of fun. So I'm down with this rule change. So we'll have to see.